Greetings! So, I have procured what is hopefully a proper piece of technology to record my voice. Now, this is lovely because as far as I'm concerned, you can actually, hear me now. So that's great. In other news, I'm engaged in battle with my computer. It has betrayed me for the last time, and I am now releasing an official declaration of war. In the meantime, we have a temporary call of arms, so I may record this log. On top of that, I'm aware that I have released only 2 data records thus far, but completing and writing about experiments takes time, as well as figuring out what is acceptable to release to the public concerning all of your lot's lack of clearance for more complicated work being done. I've taken a minor break from data records for the sake of a bit of travel. I wish to introduce the assistants that took over the space station whilst I went out and met a few new people, as well as a certainly interesting piece of work. Along with my records of them, I have drawn said assistants and Dastardly Bastard Man. I prefer drawing rather than taking pictures, and I suggest you try so as well. It certainly helps with memory retention of certain unforgivable betrayals. I'll have the recordings of my drawings displayed behind me as I'm talking, but I don't quite plan on talking about what exactly I'm doing in the drawing. It takes time to do that, and it takes time to figure out what exactly I'm going to say during these, as I have little to no experience making videos for the general public to consume. If you'd like me to talk about it at some point, I'm sure I could put some energy into making a video more geared towards that sort of thing. Regardless, I hope you enjoy me talking about Alpha, as I truly do love her dearly. That's why I did her first, so I had enough energy to make her look good. 001, or Alpha for simplicity's sake, is the first Mawak assistant I made. She's highly reliable and hardworking, as I raised her myself with the intention of utilizing her for more mundane tasks upon the space station. To differentiate herself from my prisoner Mawak, I allow her to dye her hair red. She does so using fruits we procure from other planets, so she says it's better for the so-called health of her hair. I have attempted to whip up a more permanent dye for her, but she has refused to try it. Citing my lack of experience with hair care as her reasoning for betraying me so. Alpha wears a long lab coat with a thick metal mask to hide the anomalous effect of her face. She tends to prefer dyeing a front chunk of her hair red, or the back of her head is to be easily recognizable. Alpha wears simple cloth pieces to recognize her as lead assistant while her hair is undyed. These are always bright red in color, with a one printed clearly on the larger pieces, such as the flap that hangs from her back. Alpha keeps her hair cut short aside from the front of her head, which she allows to grow long. She wears long gloves with thick leather pads to protect from any lesser injuries during experimentation. These have proved to work extremely well. Alpha is the oldest assistant and the first of her kind. If I remember right, her day of exiting my cloning chamber is coming up. She should be turning 20 soon. Alpha is at a point in which she takes charge of her own experiments, traveling as needed. This drawing is actually one of her first missions outside the space station. A particular species of wyvern had begun to initiate mating, so Alpha and I watched as to take notes. She's gone on to work on projects individually, returning to the station on a weekly basis to check in. While it certainly makes me nervous to have her roaming the universe alone, Alpha is the best assistant I have. If I can't trust her, I wouldn't be able to trust anyone. So I put a tracker in her, along with the system I use to keep tabs on the vitals of all my assistants. So far, I've had no need to track her location or worry about her physical health. During my leave of absence from the station, Alpha was in charge of keeping everything orderly and ensuring no one died. While one experiment passed away during my leave, it was due to reasons unrelated to Alpha's leadership. This puts me at ease, and I do plan to leave more often as the station is fully functional by itself. A scientist does need a vacation every once in a while, after all. Alpha personally wears a mask around others due to the anomalous effects of her face. It's due to the nature of the Mawak species. It's unclear at this time the reason for this strange quirk, so Alpha covers her face with a thick metal mask while around others. I believe it's to minimize untoward interactions she may experience otherwise, such as screaming, hostility, and other negativity. She does not wear one while around myself and the other assistants, so I drew it hung by her side in this picture. I may not quite understand or like that she wears the silly thing, but it's important to her, and anything important to her is to be fairly viewed and recorded, for the sake of truth to her character. Despite her negative appearance, however, Alpha is a jokester at heart. We are currently caught up in a war of pranks. Her most recent stroke of comical genius was to bleach my robes white and blue. Too bad for her, because she has yet to discover it, but I covered her notebook in stickers I collected during my travels. However, I refused to be too petty. I only covered her notebook for my experiments that she helps with from time to time. It shouldn't be too long before she notices, though. I asked her to go collect a few things from the inhabited planet within our resident solar system. I suppose it does make me a bit mournful, though. She had about 20 years left to live, give or take. I'll go through many more alphas before I even begin to glimpse the end of my longevity. I suppose at some point I'll be forced to consider a new species to take in as my assistants. A longer-lived one, easily trained. While I have a system in place to educate new assistants, I find it bothersome to think about the funerals to come in my near future. Though the future surely holds things of interest, the past things of importance, and the present comfort, change has always been uncomfortable. Perhaps that's why it took so long to leave my stubby position as a tetrarch. Regardless, the drawing is done, and I'm happy with how my darling Alpha turned out. My computer stole the first bit of recording I had for this piece, so please excuse the jump directly into sketching the clothing. Assistant 003, or Blue, is second in command after Alpha. They are currently in charge of creating the repair ports for experiment R010S, and have created several prototypes thus far. While Alpha might be more of a perfectionist when it comes to her experiments and science in general, Blue is more of a free spirit. This is said lovingly, as willingness to improve and move on from failure is essential to both creation and advancement. Blue might create less polished inventions, but she works fast and is easily able to create from nothing, whipping up designs as if they were nothing more than simple doodles. Blue is not the leader Alpha is, so she was in charge of handling the station and the safety of everyone inside. It's difficult to leave while imagining scenarios upon scenarios in which everyone and everything could go wrong, and I wouldn't be there to help. Which means I wrote up a series of manuals for Blue. She is the only assistant tasked with memorizing the 12 volumes of material, and is now permanently in charge of the station and its continued punctuality. This means I will venture out more in the future for the sake of pursuing new ideas and knowledge. Blue does not dye her hair like Alpha does, but wears mainly blue clothing with red accessories. All assistants prefer some form of long coat or shirt, and Blue is no different. With my permission, she has dyed her lab coat dark blue, decorating it with bright red stripes to identify her as a personnel in charge. I suppose the many community of assistants within the space station have all collectively agreed that red means authority. Does this have anything to do with my clothing, solely consisting of reds and grays? Regardless, Blue is smart and hardworking, working on individual projects at a time instead of spreading herself thin. She's one of the few assistants who helps others with their assignments and has a natural affinity for creative outlets such as art and design. For her position as one of advisement for the other assistants, as well as the main repair person for the station. I hold full faith in her abilities. That's why she handles Gorth the Destroyer, of whom she is holding in this drawing. She is fully capable of keeping him far, far away from me. After she finishes creating the repair ports for experiment R010S, I plan to allow her to one project of her choice, whether that be starting something new or picking up an abandoned project. It is my hope that this promotion will tame her wild spirit just a bit, so she can more comfortably mesh with her leadership position. While Alpha is calmer and quiet, Blue is outspoken and rambunctious. I do not believe she will survive within silence for more than a few minutes, as she is apparently allergic. This is only possible as I allowed clones of experiment M030KO to form their own thought patterns and personalities within the cloning process. And I suppose I don't hold them up to ideals of perfect reproduction of Alpha or 0000 from M03KO. The only thing universal among them is their violent, overprotective natures. Each and every assistant is their own individual person with their own thoughts and ideas, none so clearly demonstrated as the difference between Alpha and Blue. It fills me with something akin to joy to watch them all grow to be so different from each other. Just look at this face. Look at her. She's perfect. She is perfect. Alright, so I lied. I have a bit more of the recording of this drawing to fill in, and what I was talking about with Blue is done now, so I'll talk about what I'm doing. I'm outlining the hair, as you can see, and filling it in with a light blonde. Not platinum blonde like 023, but pretty close. I am filling in the details of her attire with, I'm not sure what to describe it as, red, crimson, kind of like a off red is how I would describe it best. I don't know. This is why I make scripts for things like this, because I don't particularly know how to describe what I'm doing. I'm filling in her base clothing with blue, because the majority of her outfit in day-to-day is blue. At this point, someone decided to lay on my arm, someone named Gorth the Destroyer, so I was unable to draw properly, because he is a jerk. I don't appreciate it. Regardless, the main way I do this is I outline what I'm going to fill in with color, and then I fill it in, and I choose colors that are usually within the same color family or within the same values, though this particular part of the process is always difficult because you never really know how things are going to look together when you pick colors. You only know how they're going to look when you're done doing it all, and you've wasted a lot of time by then. There's no take-backsies. And now I am putting in another blue, kind of a middle value between the dark blue and light blue of her main outfit. And then I believe next I fill in Gorth the Destroyer. He's not multiple colors because I wanted the emphasis to be on blue. And then I fix minor details. I do shading, which is usually somewhere closer to green on the color wheel, towards the right, compared to the majority of colors I was using. And then I use cell shading with a multiplied layer to achieve the look I want. After I use cell shading, I like to kind of rub it in around a little with my little rubby tool. It's great. Gotta love it. Gotta love the rubby tool. And now I'm lighting by using what I believe is a overlay layer modifier. So that, yeah. And then I'm using a general overlay modifier to bring everything together. And then I hue shift everything and I'm done. It's great. I love it. She's so pretty. Look at her. Look at her with that little demon. It's horrifying. But she's so pretty. Goodbye. The war with my computer caused me to lose quite a bit of the footage of this drawing. I apologize. I only have the footage from the line art onwards. Assistant 023, also known as Mono, is the last remaining survivor from her round of cloning. She was from the group 20 to 30, and all the other 9 assistants have perished. They had all accompanied me to a business meeting with one of our previous business partners. Said business partner that it would be ideal to attack me to steal my devices and recorded knowledge, which resulted in all present assistants attacking the business partner and his accomplices. The resulting fighting killed Laura, June, Benny, Cass, Sora, Sam, Avora, Linny, and Jazz. This has greatly affected Mono and resulted in her becoming far more introverted and quiet. Mono has trained with mental health professionals of another species and planet that will, at this time, remain unnamed. She is the resident mental health professional for all assistants and has proven herself helpful and intelligent in her field many times over. I greatly regret the tragedy that were her batch sisters and have implemented new measures to ensure their continued safety. Mono herself has chosen not to leave the space station ever again, even to visit those that trained her. In turn, I've built screens that display the live stream from cameras on one planet within our solar system currently sustaining life, as to give her something to do when not working. I have yet to see any improvement in her. Mono has bleached her hair to a platinum blonde, wearing it long. She most often has her hair bound in a ponytail or a braid, tied with a soft powder blue ribbon. Her clothing consists of soft blues with only a few red accents in accordance with the assistant community, showing her position of authority. Mono wears turtleneck sweaters with simple suit pants. She wears no jewelry, choosing instead to paint her exposed skin with soft blue stripes. According to Mono, blue supposedly makes people inherently trust you. It represents calmness, serenity, and peace, meaning Mono has painted her office a subtle light blue. I myself am not versed on the effects that color has on the psyche, but I'll trust what Mono tells me, as she is far more learned in this topic. Mono has implemented a few less than favorable changes in my routine as of late. I'm unsure as to why, since I've yet to visit her for help. Despite my protest, she has banned any and all of my all-nighters, along with setting up a regular food schedule. I can only assume she has done this to ruin my life. I can understand being a bit protective and concerned, however, she has taken it too far. I am similarly not allowed to consume calorie-dense meals for fast and easily accessible energy. Mono has trained a few assistants how to make proper meals. Put that in quotes. These meals suck. It's just meat and fiber. Meat and fiber. I'm sick of it, literally. I can't stomach the thought of eating another one of those meals. They're just the same ingredients cooked differently every time. The discussion with Alpha may be in order to limit Mono's duties concerning my health before it's too late. Mono is the youngest of the High Trio, my most trusted assistants. She was made the most recently out of them and has the least experience. Mono is not in charge of anything other than continuing her current job during my absence. I do not, however, wish to discredit her. Mono serves a highly important role within the space station, and should we experience her sudden loss, I feel that it would be impossible to ever train her competent replacement without recreating the events she experienced. This is not something I'm going to consider, so I will allow her to pick a new assistant to train for the sake of taking her job. Hopefully, this will allow her to relax somewhat. Mono is done. Now onto the worst piece of living garbage this universe has put out in the history of forever. The High Priest is not a personnel upon the station per se, but the series of records is more dedicated to interesting people of note I've met, seen, or perhaps created, such as Alpha. To begin my accounting of this unsightly beast of a man, I like to set the scene for you. I was minding my business on an unnamed planet sifting through rocks. I had noticed strange patterns within the sedimentary layers present in cliff sides throughout the planet, and wanted to inspect my surroundings before taking my leave. As I begin sifting through odd, misplaced volcanic rock mixed with the eroded sand at the bottom of the cliffs, this giant, bollocking bastard crashed straight through the cliffs above me, crash landing off near the forest of plants behind me. I was already majorly annoyed as he had destroyed the main pattern of rock I'd been studying, an entire mountain's worth of pattern of rock. But just as I stood up to leave, he ran in front of me, claiming something about protecting the innocents or whatever. So of course I politely told him that I was perfectly capable of defending myself and got ignored. I was ignored. Now, whomsoever he was fighting with came down to have a pleasant little chit-chat. This bastard ignored him too, and Then he pushed me back, lunging at his opposer. Now, of course, I don't stand for such impolite behavior, so I killed his opposer and demanded answers from him. But instead of thanking me, or God forbid, engaging me in idle conversation to answer my questions, he claimed the body of his opponent and flew off without another word. So starts my journey of tracking this bastard down and beating some politeness into him. During my journey to find this man, I learned that his name was Nylir, and he is a high priest of some developed planet of bastards and jerks. But more importantly, I learned that he was looking for a competent scientist to hire. The high priest is a simple man. He enjoys watching people squirm and consuming copious amounts of food. Why? What a great question. I'd love to answer. Ahem. The high priest is seen as a divine being that is the center of all magic, which explains his massively inflated ego and lack of combat ability. In reality, to fuel his magic, the priest must consume large amounts of food every day. It verges upon the 1-ton mark simply because he is constantly doing something with his magic, which is, well, I'd hope you realize it's bad. It's bad, real bad. Using large amounts of magic at once often has an effect similar to burnout or overworking a muscle. Your body essentially stops working the way it should, causing immense pain and diminishing any actual effectiveness of whatever you're doing. I suppose that's why the priest had such a hard time dealing with his opponent. He simply couldn't do much more than fly around. I did not end up killing the priest, though I did scare him quite thoroughly and deal him a satisfying beating. As a high priest, he was required to deliver blessings and sermons to the general populace. He also served a similar role to a monarch by ordering other authoritative positions around and leading his entire species as he pleases. Through minor observation, I've gathered that those in power seeking more power are unsatisfied with his performance, whilst the general population is quite happy with him. The priest wears more revealing clothing, preferring a tight fit and loose capes over something more modest. My research concluded that high priests are allowed to wear whatever they damn well please, and Nylir simply prefers this. He wears anything shiny and gold that he can get his hand on while covering his face for some odd, unexplained reason. Nylir only has one arm, and I assume that his other arm was lost in battle. He's approximately 300 years old, having taken over his father's position at the ripe old age of 13. His father was the high priest before him, and soon his position will soon choose a mate for him to create the next high priest. I assume it will be someone within the higher positions vying for power, as they tend to have more push and pull within the system. The high priest seems amicable to this. Actually, he's amicable to most things. The scientist's role was more to teach him about the natural universe instead of the preachings held within the tome his species follows as part of their religion. This position was not as annoying as I expected. His desire to learn was insatiable, and he was easy to teach. I do so miss teaching others, but I've passed the education of new assistants onto already fully educated assistants, and I have better things to do than to stick around educating a man destined to die within a few years. Nylir is an arrogant, foolish man, but he's capable enough, and he is best at what he had been born to do, which was to lead a galactic species of religious aliens. I wish his son the best. Not him, though. I never got a chance to figure out what was going on with those rocks. Bollocky bastard. As stated at the beginning of this record, my computer has waged war against me. I hope to release more of these in the future, but that will depend solely on my free time and motivation. My plan for the next recording is to go over my war with this good-for-nothing piece of metal and circuits computer, though it will likely take a millennia to ever reach a conclusion to this monumentous battle. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you a wonderful day.